Like,
Hi.
why do people
Hi.
why do people fuck up their knees?
What's up, guys? Let me go. What? Are we? What's up, guys? We're here with Zach Greenwald. Zach's in town for a couple of days to film some shows with us, and we put some questions out on social media that you might have for Zach. And one of the most common ones we saw was how to train with knee pain or knee injuries. So with that said, I'm gonna let the man here talk to us.
How to fix knee pain? Or
How to?
What was it?
I don't know.
There are a bunch of different ones. So what do you do if you have knee pain that oftentimes prevents you from performing your sport? And if your knee pain's preventing you from performing your sport, and that is likely either, in this case, CrossFit or weightlifting, you want to look at the areas that you use a lot of in terms of exercises. So let's say, scratch that, say the exercises that you perform almost all the time, and perhaps exercises that you don't quite often do, or quite often do as much of. So in CrossFit, you might have a workout that involves rowing and running and squats. You might have wall balls, and then you might do lunges. A lot of it's loaded in the same plane, and a lot of it's up and down. So if your knee's taking a toll in the same plane all the time, you might want to mix the planes up a little bit. You might want to involve some rotational elements and some elements going this way as well. You can even carry. I would argue that carrying would be going in this direction versus loading a weight through your knees up and down. So a CrossFitter might have the workout that's intensive on knee flexion and extension. I would recommend doing some carrying to take the load off in that dynamic way and challenge it with a little bit more stability. And the same applies for weightlifters who are squatting almost all the time, and they might not be getting the carrying as well, but they're definitely might not be getting as much deadlifting as the CrossFitter might be getting, which helps strengthen the backside. And by strengthening the backside, you might help take some stress off that overstressed front side.
Would you ever look at anything like maybe their technique or their mobility?
Yeah,
So-
I was gonna say, what two ways are there to look at it? Is it like movement quality first and volume, or how would you kind of pick?
I would actually first look at volume and then back off from there. So if you have pain before you quit doing everything, see if you have pain with one round of that workout that everyone's doing 3 rounds of before you stop altogether, because that way you can identify if it's a volume problem.
Yeah.
So if someone says that I had knee pain after I did this CrossFit workout, well, I'll ask how many rounds was it? It was 3 rounds. It started hurting at 2.5 rounds. Okay, well, maybe let's do that same thing. Let's do a round and a half, and next time we'll build up gradually.
Gotcha.
So if we can reintroduce volume and reduce pain that way, then that's where I'll start. And then if they're having pain right away, like right off the bat, it's like, man, the second I go to squat or the second I go to run, I'm having pain, then I'll probably look further into mechanics and the relationships between different exercises.
Is there anything common that you see amongst people that have knee pain? Like you mentioned, maybe their volume in certain movements is too high.
Yep.
Is there anything common that you see, like?
With people who have knee pain, the biggest thing that the knee pain usually prevents them from in these sports is squatting, and it's often that their squat is very strong relative to other types of movements, specifically hinging motions like a deadlift or a good morning. Exercises that will bring blood supply and also help strengthen the backside of the body, so that when you're going to do complex movements such as cleans and snatches and squats, even though the hamstrings aren't really involved in a squat at all, the knee isn't solely responsible for taking on the weaker areas roles.
So you talk about like maybe the quads are too strong, like,
relative to some other areas.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, it's great to have strong quads, but if your glutes are super weak and your back's super weak, for instance, if you're in a squat and your knee is hurting and you do that good morning type of squat, even in a back squat as well, that's probably due to having weaker quads. So we might want to strengthen the quads up or strengthen the glutes. But
what are some exercises that you do that?
yeah, so let's just say you're having that knee pain and you're struggling by staying upright in the squat. That's likely someone whose quads could be stronger and their volume is just too high for what they're doing.
Got it.
So you might want to have some step ups in there, especially if the knee pain's one side at a time. Just strip it down. Lunging, stepping, even types of reaching exercises, so like how a pistol is reaching a front foot forward, maybe don't go as low, but practice balancing on one foot and reaching the other one out in different directions to load through the one knee with less flexion.
And would you do this like when somebody is actively having pain, or after the pain is kind of maybe subsided?
So I would do this and try to craft a program to help them resolve the pain, and have that program in and of itself be what resolves the pain, rather than something that they do on the side.
Like a substitution.
Yeah, so you can always scale, and scaling is very helpful. One thing to include in that scaling topic is total volume before you do anything. I think that's something that's not addressed as much, which should be. So before you stop squatting and change the exercise, maybe don't do 5 sets of 5, do 2 or 3 sets.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Someone comes to me, I got knee pain, is it my ankles or my hips? And I'm like, it may be your ankle or your hips, but I look at it and I'm like, well, let's look at your volume. And they're squatting 5 days a week. I'm like, you're just squatting too much.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know you need to squat that much? So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right,
Look at the volume
And
first.
what's the minimum effective, minimum volume?
Totally, and if we know,
Or maximum recoverable volume.
we spoke about this on the podcast as well, is that if that person can back squat, let's just say 200 pounds, let's say in this case they have 200-pound back squat and their best deadlifts below that, and they're squatting 5 times a week. Well, if you look at the majority of elite level CrossFit athletes and even weightlifters, they can pull over their squat. And we ideally should be doing that. And if you're squatting 5 times a week and pulling once, so we just got to switch that relationship up. You have to change not just the volume, but the frequency of exercise selection.
Yeah, so looking at the volume first, and then looking at the movements that you're doing, and then trying to change, maybe I guess what you're saying, if you're squatting too much, it's a lot of up and down, maybe adding some things where you go horizontal rather than up and down.
So in walking in that case, or carrying, another thing too is someone might ask me, well, what if I have knee pain with my back squat? Or what do I do when I have knee pain with back squat? That doesn't always ensure that knee pain occurs in the front squat or overhead squat, or other loaded squats as well. Maybe you hold a weight here, or in a goblet squat. So I've seen where if someone has a very, very weak front squat relative to back squat, and that front squat is almost asking to, it's like, please, can we get stronger to support heavier load? If I have them front squat, and their front squat ratio's super, super low relative to their back squat, I'll give them more front squats, and sometimes that helps resolve the pain entirely.
Yeah, good balance.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of. So I would say in review, before you stop doing an exercise, bring the volume down and find what that minimal effective dose is, and basically your threshold, and then slowly build upon that. And in addition to reducing volume with that exercise, is incorporating other types of motions and planes of motions that you're not currently getting in your program.
So again, this is Zach Greenwald. We just did a podcast with this guy. Go check it out. We talked about a biofeedback test that he does. We've got a cool video on that as well, so make sure you go check those out.
Exercise. So what I tell for my CrossFit athletes is, can you push over your head what you can pull under your chin? Can you shoulder press what you can high pull? With a dumbbell in each hand, or with the barbell?
hips?
Strict.
Okay.
Can you balance those two out?